Hi, I'm Gil Winch, author of Winning with Underdogs and founder of CY, a social business. Today in the show, we're going to talk about how kindness and caring can transform you into the best leader ever. We're going to talk about how the cure for the Great Resignation is just under your nose. And all you need to do is remove the blinds in order to see it. We're also going to talk about how escape rooms and social onboarding and reserved employment can actually transform your business and make it much more profitable and also much more enjoyable. And we're probably going to mention how being diagnosed with a terminal illness can actually transform not only your own life, but the lives of so many others if you take it into the right direction. So please stay tuned.
Congratulations! You are tuned into Dov Baron's Leadership and Loyalty Show, the #1 podcast for Fortune 500 executives and those who are dedicated to creating a quantum leap in leadership. Your host, Dov Baron. He's an executive mentor to leaders like you, a contributing writer for Entrepreneur Magazine, CEO World, and he's been featured on CNN, Fox, CBS, and many other notable sites. Dov Baron is an international business speaker who was named by Inc. magazine as one of the top 100 leadership speakers to hire. Now, over to Dov Baron.
Welcome, dear friends, fans, and fellow aficionados of leadership excellence. Thank you for joining us on this episode of Leadership and Loyalty. I'm your host, Dov Baron. I'm here to assist you tapping into the one thing in your business that changes everything by transforming meaning into action. Curious to know more? Simply go to dovbaron.com. That's DOVBARON.com. All right. Have you ever watched the news or seen something online and thought, someone should fix that? And then you've gone about your day and not really thought about it until the next time it shows up. Well, what happens when you see an issue, it bothers you in the world, it keeps showing up? Is there a part of you that thinks that maybe I'm the one who's supposed to do something about this? Maybe that's why I'm noticing it. Do you tell yourself that you couldn't make a difference? Do you find a way to push your courage out into the sea of expectations and do what it takes? What would you do? That's where we're going in the next 2 episodes as we examine how to fix the talent shortage with the author of the book, Winning with Underdogs. As always, we need your help in staying relevant. So please get yourself over to wherever it is that you tune into the podcast from and do us a favor. It really helps and it's really important, particularly on Apple. If you can do a rate, review, and subscribe to the show, that would be awesome. We really appreciate it when you share the show with other people, and we really appreciate those reviews. If you are a regular listener, big thank you to you for making us the #1 podcast globally for Fortune 500 listeners. And we are honored and grateful to be cited by Inc.com as the #1 podcast to make you a better leader. All right, let's dive right in. How can we end workplace exclusion? How can we boost our businesses' profits, strengthen our communities, and make significant inroads towards social justice? It's a big order, right? Well, the answer may lay in one of the greatest challenges we've been facing in the modern times, and that is the Great Resignation and quiet quitting. We know there's a massive shortage, but what if there's a talent pool you don't know about? In fact, HR hiring teams are under massive pressure to fill all the demands for talent. But what if there's a talent pool that they could tap into that has excellent candidates, that's much larger than most hiring managers even realize exists, candidates who are highly productive, engaged, and will stay for the long haul? What would that be like? They exist. We're going to go into that. How? Well, let's find out. Our guest for the next 2 episodes is Dr. Gil Winch. He has a Ph.D. in psychology. He is a TED speaker. He is a keynote speaker. He's the founder of Call Yachol, which is CY, and one of a kind. It's a one-of-a-kind for-profit social business staffed and managed primarily by people with disabilities. Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together and help me to welcome the author of Winning with Underdogs, Mr. Gil Winch. So did I pronounce it correctly, or is that how I would pronounce it, but it's not how it's pronounced?
Oh, you
Call...
pronounced the name of the company and my name correctly, which is like
good.
Very good.
That's good to know.
Yeah.
This is a big order. This is, like I said, taking on social justice, ending a lot of the discrimination, fixing the talent pool. And I want to dive into all that and go deep on that. But before I do, I want to ask you one of my favorite questions that's part of the show, and that is, what is the origin story of what gives your life meaning? Now, you and I have talked about some things before in previous conversations. Your life was had its twists and turns. What's the origin story of what gives your life meaning?
Well, I love that question, by the way, because I always love to hear what makes people who they are.
Sure.
And I was born like a happy, optimistic guy. I was fulfilled. I was happy. I was making a decent living. I'm really happily married. Seemingly everything was going really, really great. Mm-hmm. And I wasn't lacking anything.
Mm-hmm.
All of a sudden, when I turned 40, which was a while ago,
3 weeks now,
right? Yeah, long time ago. And okay. My wife said, "You're 40, go have a checkup." And I apparently there's a rule or something I didn't know about, didn't get the memo. I went to have a checkup and I just forgot about it. I thought I feel great, nothing's in the way. I'll just go and have it. I forgot about it. And the doctor called the next day, sounding concerned.
Sure.
And he said, "You need to come in." And I said, "Yeah, I'll make it next week." He said, No, you need to come in now. Oh. Which is never really great news. And I came in now, and to keep it short, he said, you're going to do a biopsy and stuff, but I'm telling you in advance, you have cancer. I think it's a kind we don't know how to treat. It's terminal cancer, and there are 4 stages, and you're stage 4. You have tens of sites all over your body. Don't know how you haven't felt it to date, but those are the facts, and you need to prepare.
So now he's diagnosed you with terminal cancer, stage 4, which, for those who don't know, means you don't have a long time.
Yeah.
And they don't know how to treat it.
Yeah.
Wow.
They can make life less painful, but they can't make it go away.
Right.
This was 2001.
Mm-hmm.
And so I spent the next few weeks, I think, between being very, very scared and very, very sad. My daughters were really, really young. I stayed at home. I tried to look at TV, but whenever there was someone who seemed to me over 40, I was like so envious that they got time I'm not going to get.
Right.
But I woke up after about a few weeks, all of a sudden I wasn't feeling scared anymore, and I wasn't feeling sad anymore. I was just feeling angry. And I was feeling angry at only one person, at myself, because preparing to die is not the kind of person I am. Right. I don't go down quietly.
Right.
And I figured with modern medicine, there's going to be the first person in the world at some point who lives with this. I want that slot.
Right.
And in order to get that slot, I thought there are 2 things I can do. And I just want to say in parenthesis that I think anybody in my situation, or everybody in my situation, I think maybe the most difficult thing is sort of control of your life is grabbed away. The reins are taken away. Now the doctors have them, and they're telling you what you can and what you cannot, how to do, what to eat, how to live. And people who like to control their own destiny, I think that's maybe the toughest blow.
It's another trauma.
You can't. And I thought, you know what? I can, because there are things I can do I don't know how long I'll survive, but there are definitely things I can do to make that period as long as possible. And mainly 2 things I thought. 1, prepare my body for the worst. I was 40. I remembered being in shape, but it was only a memory. And I remembered being athletic, but that was only a memory. And my body totally thought that not. So I decided I'm gonna get my body in the best shape possible. And I know you know a lot about that. And that sort of sets you on one path.
Yes.
And the other thing I thought of, I want to do something that, even though I'm a happy guy, will lift my spirits as high as I can think of. And I wanted to find something social that I could have a serious impact upon. And because we're just a regular family, it couldn't be by giving. I just don't have enough to give to make any kind of an impact. It had to be something I could address by doing. And I wanted something that would take a long time. I wanted a nice 30-year sort of plan that I can start on the path. And if I stay on it and keep myself healthy, then I'm going to push back against cancer as hard as I can. And serendipity, I think, is a thing, because like a week later, I met a buddy of mine who's a paraplegic, and he said, people with disabilities in general and severe disabilities specifically are the most unemployed population in the world. And I have to say, I nodded, I said, yes, but it sort of made sense. Severely disabled, not working. Yeah, it makes sense. But I couldn't shake that notion. And when I went home, I started to look at, so who are these severely disabled people that are globally unemployed? He said like 80 to 90% unemployment.
Wow.
And I realized, wait a minute, there's something here, because people who are legally blind are severely unemployed, but 80% of them have enough sight left to function on a computer.
Oh.
So why are they out of work? Why are people in a wheelchair out of work? They're just in a wheelchair.
They're going to be
Most
sitting
places
anyway.
are accessible,
Yeah.
right? And we're not doing the Industrial Revolution anymore. We're not working in the coal mines and in the fields. I could get it then, but most people at work spend their days with phones and screens. And I started speaking to anybody I could get my hands on, so to speak, who was severely disabled, and they were all at home. And when I asked them what they did all day, they said, oh, we do phones and screens. And then I said to myself, wait a minute. That means, and I'll give you another example of a statistic, a third of the disabled people in the world are emotionally disabled. Most of them are compliant on their medication. You would know they're emotionally disabled. Why are they out of a job, 90% of them? And I sort of came to the conclusion that people are out of a job, people with disabilities are out of a job globally, not because of their disabilities. And if their disabilities are not the reason they're out of a job, then it sort of hit me, it's solvable. I have no idea what the problem is that needs to be solved. But if this is a global phenomenon, and it's really hurtful for every level when you think of any economy where 15% don't work is a weaker economy. It's bad for communities. It's bad for families. You usually have a family member losing work because they're catering to, and it's horrific to the people with disabilities themselves. So that set me pretty much on the path I'm on. I thought my initial plan, which was good, it just didn't work, but my initial plan was interview as many people as you can find, map the real reasons they're out of a job, and then fix it. And then prove to the world that you fixed it. That was what set me on the path.
So let me ask you, Gil, because it sounds obscure in the context of your life. Did you have relationships with a lot of disabled people before? Was there something that was floating that to top of mind for you before?
Didn't think of people with disabilities before.
No.
Didn't know, other than this guy, pretty much didn't know anybody with disabilities before. Now, on a good day, I'm 5'8", and around 150.
Right.
So you wouldn't think of me usually as the protector of the weak, because,
Right.
pretty much most people would be stronger than I am. But I always stood up for the weak. It usually got me in sort of trouble, but my mouth usually led those kinds of things. I think it's very difficult for me to see people who are weaker being abused or hurt, or animals. I as a kid, I was told by my parents, I just used to walk out the room if an animal would be hurt on a show. I just couldn't take it. And I figured that this is so unfair, because we've taken the weakest amongst us, medically at least, and we've imposed upon them two horrific hardships. We've made them the poorest of the poor. And in other than Switzerland, in every country, disability pensions are way below minimum wage. So we're talking about people who are, have to decide medicine or food or heat or whatever. And we've imposed upon them an additional hardship, which is total social isolation. Everybody leaves home, goes somewhere, and they stay at home day after day amongst four walls, if they have them. And I really believe societies are measured by how you strengthen the weakest link, and we've weakened it horrifically. And it's so unfair. Someone also told me that 80% of people with disabilities in the world acquire them, are not born with them.
Oh, okay.
And then I remembered that I got like 100% of disability, not because I had disabilities, because of a looming expiration date. So people with terminal illnesses are given, at least in Israel, like very high disability quotas, even though I wasn't disabled in any way, but I was officially part of the same group I was trying to help out. And it was the minute I thought about it, the minute I knew that, then it felt like the most correct thing for me to do in the world. It felt totally what I should be doing with my time, however long that will be.
So you are diagnosed. What's the, it seems like it was pretty quick that you decided on a course.
Yes.
And the catalyst is this conversation with your friend.
Yeah, just the stat he gave me about the level of unemployment.
Right. So at this point, I would imagine, I'm thinking about my wife and my family, I would imagine that I'm going, listen, these people are really suffering. And my family is saying, listen, you're a bissel mashuga. You've gone crazy. Take it easy, dude. Go to bed, lie down, have a pill, whatever it is. And you went into top gear.
Yeah.
How did the family respond to this stage 4 cancer person who has now put his own issues to the side in order to go fight the fight?
Well, I told you I was really, really happily married.
Yeah.
And I'm happily married because there's huge trust and respect between my wife and I. And I didn't wake up one day with that idea. It was a few days coming, and I didn't address it in a weird way. I didn't say, I just said, this is the path, and I think I should be on it. And I think this is what's going to make me take that slot, because I was talking about taking the slot of the first person to survive with this specific kind of cancer.
Right.
And I think my wife believes in me, and she thought that no harm can be done because I'm not supposed to have long anyhow.
Right.
I have life insurance, so that's going to change anything. I mean, I'm not risking. I wasn't at that point. I did later, but I wasn't risking anything really.
Mm-hmm.
And she saw a huge change in me between the moping around of the first few weeks and the all galvanized, sparkle in the eye, energized person I woke up with a few weeks later. So I didn't get any pushback at all. People around me thought it's a lovely idea.
Right.
You
lovely
do that.
Idea.
Nobody actually thought I'm going to actually have any progress there, but they thought, it's making you happy. It's a lovely idea. It's not going to do any harm. Great, go for it.
So that's what I was going to say. So I imagine there was two sides to it. One, which you've already dealt with, which is the disapproval and take care of yourself. But the other one is, it's okay. It's like when my mother was dying of cancer. My mother smoked when she was 14, all the way through. And my sister's like, let her smoke. I mean, she's going to be dead in 20 minutes. So, and I get that. And it's kind of like, well, just let them do whatever they're doing. So it's kind of patronizing, but you were on this path. You must have still been going to your doctor. You must still been going to all those things.
Yeah, that was a big part of I had to go into hospital 2-3 times a month. I was encouraged to start chemotherapy.
Right.
But I have a Ph.D. and I know how to read research. And I said, no, great. Just show me the research that with this type of cancer, chemotherapy will prolong my life by a day, and I'll do it.
Sure.
But if you can't show me the research, and they couldn't because it doesn't, I said, well, when I'm not feeling well, I'll have chemotherapy, but I'm feeling great. I started running, and I see no good reason to start treatment if it's not going to have the impact I want, and I'm not suffering. There's nothing to alleviate.
Right.
The pushback was actually from my doctors with the whole running thing.
Oh, really? They didn't want you to run?
No, they said, because at some point I said, I need to run a marathon. And they said, no, that's not good for you because you're weakening your body and, you have cancer all over. I said, no, the cancer's coming. We'll do it together. But we had these sort of confrontations in hospital. I had a wonderful doctor, and I still do. And she sort of brings in help of other doctors to try and convince me to stop the marathon plan.
Right.
But I think some people, not everyone, but I'm sure that you're that kind of person as well. When we hit on the right thing, we know it's the right thing.
Yeah, there's no question.
I knew this was the right thing for me to do.
Right.
The marathons and the people with disability thing, it hit so true with me that I wasn't going to be dissuaded by anyone.
Right. Now, obviously, the name of the book gives it away, which is, winning with underdogs. And you talked about how, that had been kind of a passion for you with the underdogs. And then certainly this is it. It's interesting. I had a conversation with a friend recently, and we talked about I personally have a great deal of problem with politically correct. That's me. It's not right or wrong. It's me. And I think that because we've lost context and we stay in content, and, I have friends who have different things and we make fun of each other, and it's because we love each other. It's not because we're mean. But at the same time, my friend and I were talking the other day, and I said, where is it still okay to discriminate? Where have we made it okay still to discriminate? Because a lot of things you can't discriminate, and I think that's good. But one of the things I thought about when reading through your material was, it's kind of a passive aggressive discrimination against people who are disabled. Is this automatic check the box, don't bother asking anymore? Maybe we can give them $50 more a month and help them to get by, but they're not a productive member of society. They're an eater, not a feeder, right? That horrible concept. So how do you, in this big movement towards, quote, diversity in the world, what do you see as the state of diversity in the workplace today?
Well, I think that there are some things that are obvious, but no one points them out.
Right.
I'll just give you a couple of examples. So many large companies have these wonderful conferences about the power of a woman.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yep.
If I'm not mistaken, in the US, the gender wage parity gap currently is in double figures. It's close to 20%.
Yes.
Meaning that an American woman with an average salary doing exactly the same job as a male will earn probably more than $500,000 less during her lifetime, just because she's a female.
Yeah, because she
and
got
those
ovaries
companies,
instead of
they all
testicles.
talk about, sorry.
Because she got ovaries instead of testicles in the lottery.
And those companies all talk about, no, but it's important and equality. And then there's this stat I came upon. I did a lot of research with the book, and I found lots of annoying stuff. For instance, that out of the 900 and something biggest companies in America, 700 and something haven't had an audit of wage parity, gender audit in the past 5 years. They're holding the conferences, but they're not checking to see if they're part of that 20% gap.
Right.
And, it's a bit of a lip service situation there.
Mm-hmm.
And you have in the Global 500, and I know you have an awful lot of listeners for the Global 500, and I'm telling you that nearly every person I know is a good person at heart, and yet you have more managers, senior managers named John than women.
Yes.
Now, John is a lovely name, don't get me wrong, but more senior managers named John than women, something is basically wrong there, because if you really believe that everybody is equal, there's as much intelligence among women than amongst men, among people of this color than amongst people of that color, and people with disabilities than amongst people without disabilities. You have a very small group of people with disabilities who are cognitively disabled. That's it. The rest are regular, like everybody else. Their abilities are. So the fact that we're keeping them and other populations out, and we're discriminating against most people, women are half of the people. People of color have to send in twice as many resumes to get the same amount of interviews. Most people in the globe are being discriminated against in the workplace or just not allowed in.
Yeah.
And there's something so inherently wrong about that. And what everybody's doing nowadays is starting to open their doors wider.
Mm.
And to me, I don't know, Dov, it's like, do you have a bouncer at the door? If you have a bouncer at the door, you're discriminating. It doesn't matter if he's letting in a few more people than he did yesterday.
Right.
You got a bouncer at the door. Get rid of the bouncer if you really want inclusion and diversity.
Right.
Let people be judged by their merits alone.
Mm-hmm.
Just their merits, not their sexual preference or color or beliefs or religion or anything. And once you have that bouncer at the door, and nearly everybody does, as you know, then the state of diversity in the world sucks, as far as I'm concerned.
I've often had this argument. I actually recently had somebody on and we were talking about diversity. And diversity is this thing that's gotten distorted. Like one of the things she said is political correctness is not diversity. And I thought that was a really great statement, right? That political correctness is political correctness. Diversity is a completely different thing. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that I talked about, and I know you talk a lot about, is, and I write about it and I speak about it, I talk about it at cultural stuff, is the need for diversity that is cognitive diversity. So cognitive diversity is my ability to see things in a different way. And some of that, not all of it, but some of that will come from my experiences in the world, i.e., if I've been in a wheelchair my entire life or a part of my life, there's a cognitive diversity to the way that I'm going to think about those things, about whatever the problem is. And we need more of that. And so it's really, what I loved about what you're doing is I love, and I say this all the time, one of my favorite things is to meet somebody who can breach my bias. That means I don't know I have the bias. And then somebody says something, I'm like, oh shit, I have a bias there. That's great. Thank you. And people are like, you saying thank you? Yeah, great. You woke me up around this. And you breach that bias. And I think that this is a massive, massive cognitive bias. We say, we don't say as much, well, you're that color, so you don't know, or we don't say as much, you're that gender, so you don't know. We're still saying it, but not to the same degree. But it's kind of an acceptable biases that, oh, well, you're in a wheelchair. Or you're 70% blind, or you're whatever it is, right? You have a problem with speech or whatever it is. Well, I don't talk to anybody, I type. It's like, but we don't think beyond that. And that's what I love about this work. So I know in the second half of the show, we're going to talk about the application of this, because this massive shortage we have of talent, based on my conversations with you and what I've learned from you, is pretty much an illusion.
Oh, it's a full illusion. It's a 100%.
But we're all going, oh my God, there's no talent anymore. Well, that's like saying there's no light and you're in the coal mine and you didn't bother to bring a lamp, or you don't bother to look around at all the things that are around you.
Or you're looking, but they're transparent. I'll give you a couple of examples. In Europe, there were truck driver shortages. So you didn't have enough goods and gas to light homes moving around. Now, if I'm not mistaken, and I'm not mistaken, you have millions of immigrants from Syria and North Africa dying to get a job and be part of their new home. Yeah. And they're all in camps and they're not getting jobs, most of them. You couldn't find a few thousand truck drivers there? I think you could. No one's looking there. In America, nearly 10% of the adult population has been to prison, and ex-cons, and most of them for the most minor infractions, and ex-cons are 5 times more unemployed than regular people. And then you read that Amazon has warehouse employee shortages. And I say, well, that can't be right, because if I'm not mistaken, in the same country you're having the shortages, you have, I think, 16 million ex-cons dying for a job. Yeah. I'm sure you can find a few warehouse employees there. And there's so many other populations that you have these people looking all around, staring at them, but not seeing them.
Right. As you said, they're almost like they're transparent. They can't see them because they're wearing those filters. We're going to come back into that in part 2 of the show. I want to talk particularly, for me, I have a bit of a passion for the ex-con thing and looking at what that is, and the horrendous discrimination based on laws that are draconian, and as you said, people with minor infractions who have a federal a conviction, who can't get bloody work, who want to work, who are decent human beings and can't get another start. So we'll talk about all that in part 2 of the show. Before we do that, please tell people where they can find it. Before we go into part 2, please tell people where they can find out more about you, Gil, about your book, and about your work.
So the book is in Amazon, Barnes & Nobles, and many other places, Winning with Underdogs. I'm on LinkedIn, and I'm really responsive. And you can find me easily on LinkedIn, and I get contacted every day, and I respond to people, and I respond happily. I have a website, gilwinch.com, which is easy to get to. I have a TED Talk you can listen to, which will tell you part of what we believe screening should look like.
Yes.
So you can find me in all those places, and I'm really happy for people to reach out, and I'll do the best I can.
As I said, we will make sure that we post all of those links. And listen, it's a short TED Talk. I went and listened to it, watched it immediately after Gil and I spoke last time. It's very short, but really punchy. I mean, really wow. Honestly, I watched it and went, how the hell did you fit that much in? Right?
They're very strict. Short. They're very strict, though.
I know they are. But it's like you got such good, valuable, powerful information in such a short pitch. It was really good. So thank you. And again, I will encourage everybody to do that. And again, we'll make sure that all those links are published. We're going to be back in just one click. So stay with us. Until then, stay curious, my friends. Stay curious about your own biases, about what you're not seeing, not because it's not there, but because you've been wearing the blinders society has given you. We're going to be back in just one click. Stay curious, my friends. Stay curious.